This episode of the Closeout Bodyboarding Podcast is proudly presented to you by Bodyboarding Victoria and limited edition fins. Shane, I've always wanted to know, what's the big difference between the original limited edition fins and the new Psylocke fins?
Benny, the Psylocke fins are bigger and wider than the original LE foot pockets. So basically when you try them on, they'll actually be a size up. Psylocke's fit really well in half sizes to the original fins. So I used to not be able to fit into the larges in the original LE fins, but I fit perfectly into the Psylocke large. So I just recommend everyone, if you weren't comfortable in the original LEs, go in and try on a new Psylocke's.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Back to you in the studio. Welcome to the Closeout Bodyboarding Podcast, an audio experience where three good mates discuss their love for bodyboarding. We'll also chat about some current topics and what we're all looking forward to in the future with a sport that we're all so passionate about. I'm one of your hosts, Benny Urbn, and joining me are two of my close mates, Shane Britton and Chris Watson.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome, lads. Good to have you here. Our first few eps are going to focus on giving our listeners an insight to who we are and where we fit into the scheme of things with bodyboarding. The first episode out of the ranks, we're going to focus on Chris Watson. Chris is the current president of Bodyboarding Victoria, a newly minted board member of the Surfing Victoria organisation, works for Caterpillar, and recently received his Masters of Business Administration. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Benny.
Chris, look at him. He's wandered in pretty fresh this morning. What have you been up to this morning, mate?
I work a lot with the US, and I was up at 2:30 this morning delivering training for the US. So, very fresh.
So when you say delivering training, what's that involve?
I work as a training consultant for Caterpillar. I specialise in marine, oil and gas, and industrial, and I'm lucky enough to look after a few products globally, so means I get the raw end of the deal when it comes to time zones. So I'm trying to phase this part out, but yeah, still there's the early morning or late night involved these days.
So as part of that, you've travelled a fair bit this year and previous, obviously before COVID and that as well. Where do you sort of get around to?
Absolutely. So in the past 12 months, I'm about to go on my fourth trip to the US. Been to Malaysia and Singapore already this year. In this job role, before COVID, I travelled probably every second month overseas. Singapore, Dubai, Shanghai in China, Spain, and to the US a fair bit. So I travel to the US far too often. Unfortunately, nowhere of waves. Like every time I go to Miami, you go for a look up and down the coast and there's nothing there. But yeah, I have been travelling a lot, and I thought that it'd slow down post-COVID, but it seems it's got worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You went through Texas too and tried to get into the wave pool there, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of times, and my next trip, actually, I am going back through Texas, and I'm trying to tee up something at Waco. But yeah, it can be hard to get into. I've been lucky enough. Two of the places I have actually been and surfed was the Flow Rider in Singapore. That was pretty cool. And also,
what's that? Is that like a hump, or is it a?
No, that's
similar to San Diego, correct?
Yeah. So like a full proper barrel. Believe it or not, probably one of the worst wipeouts of my life on that thing.
I believe that after watching the San Diego one.
It was brutal. And look, the opportunity arose where I could book a spot on that, and I'd never surfed one before, and the gentleman said for $70 you can have it to yourself for an hour, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I went and rode it, and it was completely backwards to any other wave I've ever ridden.
It's really strange because you have this jet propulsion water pushing
Yeah.
directly into your face. So you're constantly fighting against the natural feeling of actually catching a wave where water movement comes from behind.
Absolutely. And it's almost like there's surfing in the ocean where you're trying to trim across the wave. There's Urbn Surf when you're trying to get barreled, you're sort of on an angle. And then there's like the Flow Rider where it's
reverse engineered.
It's coming at you and you've got to take into account that. And I ended up over the falls on that and landed on my bum.
Well, I think I got folded in half on that one on the Gold Coast.
Oh, wow.
That is just a hump.
that barrel one.
I walk away from that sore.
I landed, I went over the falls, like I went for a roll and just completely cooked it and landed on my bum. Yeah. And I hit my coccyx bone.
I've done the San Diego one a few times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember lacking that also and got really damaged.
Yeah.
I remember trying to fly home from Singapore. I'm like, I've got 8 hours in a plane and in an economy seat, and I'm like, upgrade to business, please.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't sit for quite a while. But yeah, done quite a bit of travel in my time.
Yeah. So I assumed one of the main reasons behind your transition to try and pull back from that travel, you're now a family man?
Yep. I've got 2 kids. I've been married for 8 years now. 8 years as of early next year. And I've got a 5-year-old son.
Shout out to Courtney, of course.
Yeah, the world's most understanding wife. I couldn't do it without her. But we've got 2 kids, 5-year-old son Noah, and I've got a 9-month-old daughter Ava. So those 2 keep us very busy.
Yeah.
There's a fair bit going on there. So I'd like to try and spend more time home. It can be hard, being away from the family and all the rest of it. So
whereabouts are you situated at the moment?
I live on the Mornington Peninsula, a town called Rosebud. Lived in that location, or lived in that house for 7 years now. I grew up on the Mornington Peninsula, so I'm going to get this wrong, but my family is, I believe, my son will be 12th or 13th generation of Watson on the Mornington Peninsula.
So is that part of the first settler group that was...
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know an ancestor of mine, they had a vessel coming in the Heads, and one of my rellos decided, him and a few other guys on board the vessel, tied up the captain and steered it into Sorrento and jumped off, and my family's been here ever since. So
there's a Watson Street, isn't there?
Yeah. So
it's you guys, the Rileys, the Stringers,
the Skeltons.
Yeah.
So
where do the Britons fit into this?
We didn't come to a lot later, my friend.
There's local, and then there's being here for 13 generations.
Absolutely. So obviously your father is the legend Steve Spocko Watson.
Yep.
A man I highly look up to and respect. Spocko's, sort of been part of surfing and bodyboarding for a long time. Treasurer of Surfing Vic at one point.
Yep.
President of the East Coast Bodyboard Club on the Mornington Peninsula. Secretary of a GOB, the Global Organisation of Bodyboarding. He's got about 15 state titles for Victoria, I think, and 6 national titles.
Yep.
Where did it all go wrong for you?
It's always been the case where, Dad's been lucky enough as he's gotten older on. He's got to surf in heats of 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And then I've been at the other end of the spectrum where I've got to make a stack of heats before I even get to finals. And
Speaking of which, the last bodyboard state titles we just had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Down at Warrnambool.
Yep.
And the Masters event.
Yep.
You, as president, you sort of manipulated the books. And you had a heat against me.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
You did. And you transferred out of that heat and moved yourself against my brother Mark.
Yeah.
So, why transfer to the Easy Beat brother?
the Easy Beat brother that got a 19-point heat total.
Let's forget that. You did beat Mark in that heat though.
Yeah.
And took him out of bloody state title contention.
And look, to
Masters.
Yeah, look, to be honest,
it wasn't intentional.
No, it actually wasn't.
We had to go up against me competitively. That's all I'm saying.
I'd surf against you. Oh. It's like I've always wanted to surf against my old man in a heat. It's never panned out, but I'd love to surf against Dad because I reckon he'd be he'd be right into it. He'd be pretty serious.
Your old man's got the
Might
fire in
change
the
the seating arrangements at future Christmas functions.
But look, my old man's got 3 sons and a daughter, and as you gentlemen know, like having kids, you'd love to see them sort of take the love of the ocean that you've got, or the sport of bodyboarding.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm the same as I want Noah and Ava to feel the same thing I do about the ocean. We're pretty blessed in where we live, and so Dad's got 3 sons, a son from a first marriage, myself and Sam, and it's really funny that I've had that passion for bodyboarding or surfing or any form of water sport since early on. So like from the age of 4 or 5, I've really enjoyed like surfing or bodyboarding. Scott, my older brother, his stepfather shaped surfboards for a living, and Scott still wanted nothing to do with it, and even to the point where he worked for some of the large...
Yeah, he worked for Quicksilver.
Yeah. And
from memory, he did the installation at the Coolangatta store, all the surfboards. If you've ever been into the Board Riders Coolangatta store, all the boards that go around on a rack, that was Chris's brother.
He did that at in Torquay as well. So Scott, it was snowboarder and basketballer. Myself, really keen bodyboarder and stand up. I've ridden both for years. And then Sam, after Sam was a bit slower. He was really into skating, and Sam's love of the ocean is massive now. So look, I know Dad rode stand-ups for a number of years, early 90s. He started riding bodyboards, got involved in bodyboarding, started competing, I think, 91, 92 sort of region. And then I followed on, and because like I rode bodyboards with him as well, I always wanted to compete. I think like I first started competing in 1996. Like I was 9 years old, I think.
Yeah, wow.
And, as part of East Coast Bodyboard Club back then. And, we really enjoyed competing, and sort of got to probably 2002. We sort of stopped, slowed down on the competing. And I started riding a stand-up a bit more, sort of going through my teenage years and whatnot. But, those late 90s, like I was pretty young at the time, lucky enough to win a couple of state titles, went to a couple of national titles as well. So, some of the most memorable ones like York's Peninsula, like that event was epic.
Yeah.
We were speaking to Dillon Beach just a few days ago about this.
Yes.
And from the memory of, I guess, of everyone that was there, like that's a very fickle place to run an event, and
it turned on.
Well, and on top of that, I don't think because of the dynamic of how South Australia works these days, there's no way in hell that you'd probably be able to be able to run an event on York's Peninsula anymore.
Yeah,
Wouldn't go down well with the local community down there.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty significant part of bodyboarding history.
Yeah.
That one and Yelling Up.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
So a bit of a backstory to Yelling Up. I remember Mum and Dad will still attest to this these days. Mum and Dad are like, they knew they were going to the Yelling Up state titles, the national titles, and Dad knew he was going to qualify, and with everything he was doing at the time, knew he was going to go there. And they're like, oh, sweet, we can farm the kids off to the grandparents, and we can go away for this nice sort of week away. I put a spanner in the works because I won the state title that year and qualified. And so I was in grommets, and I was would have been 10 years old at the time. And I qualified and got to go to Yelling Up, which was epic experience. So
you were saying you first started competing at 9. Like, even when you look at, I guess, modern club setups, and I guess from the experience that I've had in running clubs and what you guys have, like even now, you generally don't see kids that young throwing on the competition rashie.
No. And so, and even starting at 9, like, so when did you start bodyboarding? Like, what age Was it that at that age or?
No, it started before that. So sort of, probably 5, 6, I was so keen in it. And Dad was very, he wasn't pushing me. It's like, if you enjoy it, do it sort of thing. So I loved it. So Dad would take me places, and rightly or wrongly, sometimes I still remember like some of the times he'd take me out surfing, and one of the most memorable ones, I was probably about 9 or 10, and Dad took me out the back of Sereno, and it would have been 8 to 10 foot.
Yeah.
And he's like, go. And so I've taken off on this wave, and anyone that surfed out there before, how fierce the bowl is, I've nosedived in the bowl, got picked up, thrown over the falls.
Probably weighed about, 35 kilos at this stage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, probably like my left toe now, but, And I disappeared under the water for 3 waves, and there was another guy that got washed under, and Dad's like, oh no, where's Chris gone? And, but, that was really good for my surfing, but, I call it the Steve Watson apprenticip program.
Yeah. Trial by fire.
Yeah.
If you're not wiping out every session, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. So, I'm 36 this year, and we surfed with him on the weekend.
Yep.
And he still was taking
waves
off of me.
Yeah. He was getting barreled. Yeah. He was loving it.
He'd turn around, look, I was about to take off on a wave, and he's like, nah, I'll take this. The father-son rule.
How old's Steve now?
He'd be 64.
Wow.
Yeah, 64.
That's incredible. Do you foresee yourself in that same position at 64, Chris?
If I froth anywhere near as much as he does at that age, I'd be pretty stoked.
Yeah. Which I think those froth levels are relatively on par.
Yeah.
If not, you possibly may have overtaken him in the last few years.
He's still froth now, though, like turning up to comps.
Yeah.
And sitting there all day, helping out all day. And obviously competing as well. So, yeah.
Oh, 100%. And look, when I took over bodyboarding, when it was Mornington Peninsula Bodyboard Club and became the president, it was one of my goals to try and not so much phase him out, but Dad's the sort of person that works his guts out, and you got to put brick walls in front of him to slow him down. He's just full noise, and he's just a doer. He just wants to do things flat out. And
I think that's also a generational.
Yeah, but I mean, you and Sammy have done really well. Your brother Sam has done really well in sort of stepping into those roles, and Sammy stand-up surfs, and he's coming and head judge at every event.
Absolutely. It makes me so proud of what Sam's offers to the organisation. Sam busts his guts. He doesn't compete. He's doing it purely for he enjoys doing it. He's rides stand up 99% of the time on our Urbn Surf nights. He'll get on a bodyboard, and he got more waves in the last clip than I did. But that's okay. Good on him. Riding my old board and a few other bits and pieces. But yeah, Sammy does.
That's called clever marketing.
It is. So he does phenomenal. But look, it's always looked up to Dad, always been super proud of what he does, and always wanted to make sure that he was proud of what I did. And I think that moment really came when I sort of first took over, where we were discussing, we were going to have a meeting, and he was still going to do some contest directing and stuff like that. And I said, I'll send you the Zoom link, Dad. And he turned around and he goes, no, don't worry about it. He goes, you guys know what you're doing. You're fine. He goes, I'm really proud of where it is. So
yeah.
That made me stoked, to get his approval for it and for what he's seen out of it. I'm wrapped. So, but yeah, surfing with Dad still these days, he enjoys a 2 to 3 foot shore, beachy like no one else. He's also probably got more. He's got more balls than I do when it comes to shallow reefs. You watch him in club comps and stuff like that, and I've seen him roll over the jagged reef and all the rest of it, and I'm sitting there I wouldn't do that. No way.
Yeah, well, you've had some close calls with the reefs around the peninsula. You did some of your own surgery. Yeah, it's fair to say.
I have inspected some reefs pretty closely, and Yeah, the whole bottom lip of mine is scar tissue because I've hit 3 different reefs.
You got to stop smiling in the barrel.
There's still a photo getting around of when I face planted at a reef around here, and I remember my wife. It was Father's Day. My wife was taking photos, and Sam was out there, Dad was out there, and I got a stack of really good photos from that day. And one of them's still blown up on a canvas at Dad's house. Like, there's Sam in a barrel, and I'm holding a board over my head. And anyway, my wife Courtney was taking photos, and she's took a photo of me going through a barrel, and then I've wiped out, and then she's seen me come out, and I'm like wiping my face. She's like, "Oh, he's got a blood nose." Come in, I've lost a tooth, cut through the bottom of my lip, like in a T shape. I've cut both sides of like under my face, and she's like, "Oh dear." And so she's we've walked up the hill, and poor Courtney's an asthmatic. She almost had an asthma attack going up the hill trying to get up there quickly.
Panic attack.
I've just got blood like pouring out of my face, and she's like, "Oh no." And it was probably about 6 months after we'd got married, and I'm like, "Oh well, at least the wedding photos are out of the way."
Yeah. Well, it's 20 grand's worth of improvements. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I have had a few brushes. I think as you get older, and especially you get a family and stuff like that, the risks you take, you really have a long, hard look at yourself about is this worth me throwing myself over the edge? And look, I still take a few risks. I'm not going to lie. But
Shane and I were having that conversation out in the water this morning.
Yeah.
Just talking about surfing in general, as you usually do, and you just when you have kids, they are always at the forefront of, okay, well, if I hurt myself, how's that going to affect my family? How's that going to affect
100%.
my partner and how she manages that situation?
100%. So, shallow reefs for me, I'm a little bit more hesitant these days, which is really bizarre because I'll go out into the pool and not even think twice about the fact the bottom's concrete.
But it's smooth. It's fine.
It's about as smooth as exposed aggregate.
So, speaking of Urbn Surf,
yep,
you're probably the guy that surfs the most in terms of bodyboarders. Would you almost surf the most out there?
I don't know if I'm the most.
You spend a lot of hours out there.
I reckon
you're lucky. I mean, it's probably worth letting people know that you're lucky because Caterpillar is situated a kilometre down the road.
Yeah.
So your workplace is a kilometre away from Urbn Surf.
I tell you what, it's the best way to start the morning. Like, I've got to get up early. My commute's an hour and a half, and I remember
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
A couple of years ago, like before COVID, Courtney and I sort of looked at moving back up to the town and whatnot, and before Noah went to school and all the rest of it, and we were pretty close to pulling the trigger, and then the pandemic hit, and I remember I had colleagues that were stuck in, apartments and stuff like that, and here I am from my house, like Gunnamatta Back Beach was in my 5K zone, so I could surf. And, I could take Noah for a walk along the beach or, all that sort of stuff. So, I love where I live. Look, it's, very ideally place to live. The downside is that my commute is horrible.
Yeah.
And, but like, some mornings I get up early, 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'll surf a 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. session before work. And you go into work so much happier.
Well, I assume the earlier you leave from Rosebud to get back towards Tullamarine, that it's better off for you because 100%. The later you leave, you're going to get peak hour traffic.
I'll tell you what, half an hour in departure time makes a massive difference. Yeah. It's huge. So those early morning surfs, try. This year's been a whole different ball game, but most the last couple of years, every week, at least once, if not a couple of times a week. And I think all up, I've surfed the pool over 200 times.
Yeah.
That's impressive, mate.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And has it improved one piece?
My surfing has gone backwards. No. Look, I tell you what, it's, the pool's been, it's actually done probably quite the opposite for my surfing or bodyboarding. there's been things that, you know how you get stuck in certain ways over time? I liken Urbn Surf to a golf driving range. Like, you go to a golf driving range and you're trying to smash it as far as you can or whatever. Yeah. I'll go to the pool sometimes with specific goals. Like, you know, I'll go to the pool and surf barrels, but my goal is that day to land as many backflips as I can, or ARSs, or, you know, forward spins, or whatever it may be. And I think it's really helped.
The mechanical nature of it's just amazing, that it gives you that opportunity every time to know this is what the section's going to do and this is what I can do.
And it's the ultimate training ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And considering I'm a little bit of a more heavy set gentleman, I'm in the 100 kilo plus club, you know, those opportunities to land an ARS or a backflip it's a little bit harder to get a heavier gentleman out of the water. So it's been really good for me, and especially now there's a new product they're releasing where you can buy the entire clip of your surf. So you can buy all of your waves based on, facial recognition, and then you can compare it to other waves. And I've been one of the gentlemen I'm mates with, Luke Wallace. He's been, it's his company, and I've seen some of the stuff come out of it, and it's really helpful. And, you know, one of the best things you can do for your surfing is watch yourself surf. And, you know, I've been able to have a look at clips, and, you know, I'm not the most gracious or the most stylish bodyboarder, but it's helped me land moves or sort of look at different ways to attack things. But yeah, it's, you know, a lot of people you surf in the pool a lot, but I surf in the ocean more.
Yeah.
You know, like last year we had the challenge. For those who don't know, a couple of us had a challenge of how many times you could surf a year, and it became a fun sort of game. And look, at the end of the day, we were competing against ourselves, but we didn't mind taking the mickey out of anyone else. But look, I managed to surf 200 times last year, and I think 120 of those were in the ocean.
Yeah.
You know, the pool's good. The pool's good for the golf driving range experience sort of thing. You know, it's always good to get a barrel, but nothing beats the power of 6 foot wave.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're obviously been incredibly proactive with your involvement with Urbn Surf as well, from a bodyboarding Victoria standpoint, and also Urbn Surf board riders. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so probably another side to myself is I do ride a stand-up a fair bit. I ride shortboards, Mels, whatever. I don't really care. Like, if you're riding waves and you're having fun, I reckon good on you.
You've ticked the box.
Yeah, 100%. And if it means you're getting more smiles riding a Mel in 2 foot slop than, you know, trying to do spinners in 2 foot slop, so be it. But yeah, I've been involved with the Melbourne Board Riders Club, as they're now known, you know, and try to help them along for the journey in certain aspects, and even competed. And look, there's another aspect to Urbn Surf. Like, my stand-up surfing, I felt really dropped off, and with my career and everything like that, I'll probably talk about that a bit more in a second, but I really felt like I hadn't ridden a stand-up for like 6 or 7 years, like probably here and there. But I still remember saying to Sam, I'm like, I'm not good enough to ride a stand-up. And as you know, you watch some of the advanced turns or the intermediate sessions out there, and there's a lot of people that might have miscommunicated what their skill level is. And I remember Sam egging me on. He's like, have you seen some of those people surfing out there? I'm sure you could do it. And yeah, look, I really do enjoy riding a shortboard out there. I'm no means an absolute shredder, but, you know, it's a bit of fun with, you know, a different group of friends and whatnot. But it's also been really rewarding because I've been able to judge a number of those events and help them with sort of lessons learnt, like that we've learnt from organising competitions and stuff like that. And I feel that if you can, you know, help other organisations succeed by, you know...
A lot of those guys hadn't even competed before.
Yeah. A lot of them hadn't competed before. A lot of them hadn't been board riders members before.
It's also a very unique competition format.
Oh, it's very unique. Like,
confusing for someone that hasn't been involved in it?
Look, I've surfed that format. I reckon I've surfed it 10, 15 times, and trying to explain it to someone for the first time, and they're like, and I'm like, just listen to the person on the wall. They'll tell you which waves you're scoring wave. It's a interesting format, but hey, it works.
Essentially, it's a priority system.
Yeah. The biggest thing with the pool is that, yes, we've got waves that are very similar. I'm not going to say they're the same because the waves differ. The environmental conditions do impact it. And also the fact that wave 1 versus wave 5 versus wave 11 are all completely different. Like, wave 1's the worst wave at the moment. Used to be the best wave. It's not real flash.
Right.
Wave 2 is probably the priority. And anyway, it's the biggest problem is you got 12 waves per set. You can't judge 12 waves in one sitting.
No, absolutely not.
No way. Like, unless you have different panels judging it, you can't judge those 12 waves.
Which then lacks consistency.
Correct. So, that format where you surf every, a surfer on the 2nd, 5th, 8th, 11th wave, you need 2 waves gap.
Yeah.
And even then, so Sam, our head judge, my brother, he came and judged the last Urbn Surf, the Melbourne board riders. And he's like, this is wildly different to like the ocean because it's just like, what's the score? What's the score? Yeah. And you are just like bang, bang, bang. And like,
myself and Mark Brockes-Reddy, we got to judge, what was that event?
The Tradie Challenge.
The Tradie Challenge,
yeah.
that's right.
Yep.
And
fantastic event.
That was fantastic because, it's just completely different, but every wave's the same. Every second wave, someone takes off, and you just get the opportunity to go, how's that compared to the last wave? Like, so perfectly when every wave's exactly the same and everyone gets the opportunity to ride it. It's just a completely, different level.
It is. And, the one thing with the Melbourne board riders is they're very inclusive to different type of craft. I've rolled up there numerous times. I'm like, I can't be bothered riding a surfboard today. I'm going to ride my bodyboard. Whatever. And they've been really good with that. But the other thing is they've got a massive span between, they just, because of the infancy of the club, they've got the open division, and that's everyone from first timers all the way through to like full-time pool shred lords. And judging that's really hard because you've got to use the scale of 0 to 10 from someone that might be just getting up to their feet to someone that's like throwing 3-0s and all sorts of stuff. And then you get, Henry, he'll ride his bodyboard every so often as well. So you got to, judging scales very different. So it's an interesting thing. But the Tradie Challenge was an epic event.
Awesome. So a couple of years ago, you had the opportunity to take over the Mornington Peninsula Club.
Yep.
From Steve Hartshorn, the legendary Hutch down here. Shout out to Hutchie. And basically helped the club transition into bodyboarding Victoria. What was sort of the reasoning and thinking behind that?
It was a controversial choice at the time. I think it probably still is a little bit controversial. But the thing is, there's one club in Victoria. There's one club in Victoria catering for West Coast, the Warrnambool region, now Urbn Surf, and probably the east, like the southeast coast, like Cape Patterson as well. So one club sort of catering for all those. We had members, all over the shop. And look, the membership base back then was, I think we had 30 odd members in a number of different locations. But we wanted to make it sort of more inclusive of the membership base.
Yeah.
And look, the first year I took over was 21, and we thought 21 was going to be, we had all these grandiose ideas. We thought 21 was going to be, the year we get all these events off the ground, and lockdown after lockdown. The lockdowns were worse in 21 after 20. So
certainly were.
Yeah, we managed to run 2 state titles, which was phenomenal compared to a lot of other disciplines. But yeah, we wanted to be more inclusive. And look, we got a good run at 22. We were more open. we had our membership base increased to 121, I think it was, members, and that was
Which, if I'm correct, in scale to every other club in Victoria, is the biggest membership base. It'd be pretty close.
not in Victoria.
No, in a bodyboarding
No, as in
sense.
current
in
members
Australia?
of club members.
In Australia, probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest clubs.
Yeah.
So, and how we did that was we had to look at what we were offering, and one of the things for me is my vision for Bodyboarding Victoria is to be inclusive, whether you're someone trying bodyboarding for the first time or whether you're, say, like Tully Roberts, junior, up and coming, absolute shredder, pushing him through, pro junior or whatever it sort of is. So we want to be inclusive of all that that whole span, and how we did that was events offerings. And in 2022, we started doing Urbn Surf socials, which was one of the main drivers behind the membership increase, and probably some of the most exciting events I've been a part of. I mean,
The stoke at those events was amazing.
I wanted to create a community where everyone, shared the love of bodyboarding and all the rest of it. And I still remember, for me, a really sort of special moment was when we had Lackey and Cramsey come down, and we did 2 hours in the pool back to back, and just the excitement on everyone's faces,
Including Cramsey.
Cramsey. That photo of Cramsey is gold. But everyone was just having a good time. They were chatting,
Lackey was stoked after that.
Yeah, and watching Lackey DK the pool was phenomenal. And even some of the other guys, like Popey was there.
Yep.
A few of the other boys.
What a great inclusion to have Dane Pope as part of Bodyboarding Victoria.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Josh Keenan.
Yeah, a couple of Queensland expats now calling Victoria home.
Nath Clark.
Yeah. Yep. We're getting stronger by the day, aren't we? It's great.
Well, we do.
Anyone from interstate, come on down.
Yeah,
we're so welcoming down here.
We've got a broad spectrum, absolutely. So,
even internationally,
yes,
what have we got? Cook Islands.
Oh wow! We've got Portuguese, we've got Cook Islands, we've got
South African.
Plenty of South Africans. We're about to have Czech Republic.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible scope.
American. We've got American because that's
yes, we do. Francis.
Yep.
Yeah, and that
the melting pot.
Well, for me,
Melbourne.
that's what I'm really enjoying the most about what we're generating through Bodyboarding Vic, and particularly these social sessions through Urbn Surf. And I'm probably not as well travelled as you, Chris, but some of my closest friends and relationships have been formed with people that I've met through surfing abroad.
Yep.
But now to have these people as part of our own kind of backyard, I personally connect to these people really well. In such a short term time frame. Like Rui from Portugal has become one of my close friends, and I really I really have a good connection with the South African lads. Obviously, spent some time over there myself, but it's so good and it's so welcoming.
I'm so stoked to see. I was looking at the numbers, and we get so many people that new faces, and sometimes it can be hard to keep track of that sort of thing, and someone's like, "G'day, Watto, how are you?" And I'm like, "I don't know who you are." Hey, how are you? But
I know a couple of people you've actually been introduced to 3 or 4 times, and they still don't know your name. So it all evens out.
Yeah, well, this is true. Yeah. Don't leave a lasting impression. But yeah, it's great to see, and it's really great when we have an event and, people come up afterwards and say, I really enjoyed that event. And, look, the last event we did, Warrnambool,
that event was amazing.
15 plus years since we last had an event in Warrnambool. They were so welcoming, couldn't have done more for us. Kylie and Luke Palmer knocked it out of the park,
It actually felt like I've been to ABA events and so forth as well. And it felt like a national event, like the guys on the skis down there. And
But just the beach
like
itself.
having jet skis at a state title event.
Oh,
Just amazing.
absolutely on a Sunday after the Saturday where I clocked on my watch. I think it was 3Ks in 22 minutes.
Just of paddling.
Just of paddling. Yeah. I lost my leash and I lost my board and I ended up I think I was in Warrnambool Township at the Whalers pub or something, walking back to Japs. It was a fair way.
My entire goal for my heat was I just wanted to get at the back.
So, I guess to give the listeners a bit of a reference, we surfed at a beach down there called Japs, which is
Logan's Beach, also known as Logan's
Yep.
Beach.
So,
well-known whale watching platform.
Yeah.
it's a natural amphitheatre.
Absolutely.
The platforms are raised quite high from the beach. I'm not sure if you counted how many steps there are to get down, Chris.
Oh, don't even start
few?
me on the stairs. Yep. There's a
But
few.
to give, I guess, your administration team and obviously the riders and spectators and their families the opportunity to sit so high and look down onto that beach is incredible. It kind of reminds me of some other ways that we've run events at as well in the past, like D-Bar. It's another one of those natural amphitheatres. Nights in South Oz is the same. But again, Kylie and Luke Palmer did an incredible job. And I guess it's kind of mind-blowing to think why we haven't been back there sooner.
And look, we definitely will be back. I'm telling you right now, we've got other events in the works that we will be holding.
How big was it on the Sunday, boys? You think? I was lucky. I was quite warm and cozy up in my MC
Well, for
chair.
you, we just look like ants down there.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was going to say, on that Sunday, I surfed 5 heats. And at one stage, I was surfing a heat. There was a gap. There was another heat. Then I was surfing a heat. Then there was a gap. Then there was another. So I was back-to-back heats. And we were running 10-minute paddle outs. And I remember I just finished surfing in
And
the mud.
why were we having 10-minute paddle outs?
Because you need 10 minutes to paddle and the ski, get everyone out there. And I remember I'd surfed in the open semi. There was the gap, and I stayed on the beach and I surfed the Masters final. And I didn't know if I'd made it through the open semi. I tried to get someone going up to tell someone else to tell me. And I got
None of your fellow competitors were going to come down and tell you that, mate.
No.
They were going to make you walk those stairs.
I got up to the top of the stairs after the Masters final, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I'm in the open final. Pick up the rash vest, walk back down the stairs.
Were they some of the biggest and most challenging kind of conditions you've experienced? Well, firstly, from a bodyboarding Vic perspective, in total in a...
My duck diving at Ryback Beach that time, that was
pretty intense. Oh, look,
I did not catch a wave the entire heat. I just duck dived.
the Shane
I think there was 3 of us in the heat. One of my fellow competitors turned around and just caught a white water in, so he beat me because he caught a wave.
Wow.
the Shane Britton World Championship duck dive tour.
But certainly, in terms of really good waves, like that down there, the surf was good.
Yeah, it was epic, and really stoked with how that event ran. Like, one of the other ones that sort of stands out for me was, I think it was 20. I don't know if it was 21 or 22 when we went to 13th, and it was
The 13th was pumping.
It was sick.
Yeah. So last year you went to Nationals.
Yep.
And won the Tom Wilson Spirit of Bodyboarding Award.
That's a big deal.
It was a massive deal for me.
Because you had a relationship with Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And with what, Dad's past in the sport and all the rest of it. And, growing up, Dad was always working with Tom, both on the surfing Vic and, through bodyboarding. And even as far as last time I saw Tom was 2015 Nationals, I think. That was the last Nationals I went to beforehand.
So, for a bit of reference, the late Tom Wilson played a big part in administration with bodyboarding almost since day of dawn in Australia. And without him, I guess the competitive side of our sport really wouldn't be here.
Yeah, Tom was put so much effort in. And look, I went to Nationals last year, and this is really funny because every year I'm like, last couple of years, I'm like, I really, in my role as president of Bodyboarding Victoria, I really want to go to nationals and support our team or whatever. And I qualified last year. Every year I say I'm just going to visit, I qualify. And I qualified. And look, I surfed in open men's. I don't normally surf in open men's, and I came out with a reasonable result for that and came in at 7th. But the two biggest highlights of that obviously was how our team did and watching our team surf throughout the event. That was amazing. But yeah, my personal highlight was receiving that award and being recognised by a lot of people I've looked up to and peers.
What was the criteria for that? How did you even get into the running for that?
I don't know, but essentially it was,
So it wasn't a real surprise for you to win. You didn't know, probably weren't even thinking about it.
No, I wasn't. Sort of, I was riding on the sort of coattails of the fact that I've just seen, a couple of our juniors so close to winning national titles. And, to have that come
Tully Roberts and Ned Johnstone.
Yeah, absolutely shredding and, so close. Tully surfing in 2 divisions and whatnot and, finalist in both.
So, absolutely surfing out of his skin.
Yeah, absolutely epic. And, so the spirit of bodyboarding was someone who'd made a significant contribution to the sport of bodyboarding. So that meant a lot. And look, I knew it'd mean a lot to Dad. And I remember ringing Dad, and he doesn't normally say that, Dad's not someone to say like he's proud of you or anything like that. He sort of, he doesn't put it into words as such, but and like my sister rang me afterwards and she goes, you don't know how much that meant to Dad. And yeah, it meant a lot to me and I'm proud to have it on my wall at home. It's,
was there a tear shed?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So no, it was,
to put it into perspective, your relationship with your father, I once watched you get a wave at a certain break down here, and I said, that is the best barrel I have ever seen anyone ride at that break. Stand up, bodyboarder, doesn't matter. Best barrel ever. You proceeded to tell your father. And a couple of hours later, I got a phone call. Shane, I heard you surfed out here. And I went, yeah, that's right. It was, we had a great session. He goes, did Chris get any waves? I said, yeah. He actually, to be honest, it's the best barrel I've ever seen anyone ride out there. And he went, oh, yeah, just checking.
It takes a lot to impress him, and it's always your goal to try and impress him. So, look, I know deep down he doesn't put it into words. It does mean a fair bit. Yeah, it's still so funny. A little sneaky shout out to Sam if Sam had have done it though.
Oh, Sammy there would have been a memorial on the wall.
a bronze statue erected in his front yard.
My quote would have been sort of, done in some sort of tapestry and hung up on the wall. Shane said, Sammy Watson got the best barrel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for you, just checking.
Not bad.
Not bad.
So recently, we're sort of covering a fair bit of history for you here.
Yeah.
And you're starting to really push into the administrative side of bodyboarding and so forth.
Yeah.
But recently you got a position on the board of Surfing Victoria.
Correct. Yeah, yep. I'm on the board of directors for Surfing Victoria. So,
So what's that entail?
A lot of meetings.
Yeah.
Look, it's great because one thing I sort of tie into what the future of the sport is and what the rest of it. I believe that in the past there's been a lot of bodyboarding's tried to do it alone, and rightly or wrongly, people have different visions. But I've heard a lot of conjecture in the past of people like the organising bodies aren't helping us; they're not doing anything. But
talk's cheap.
That's right. And if you want to have influence, or you want not so much influence, but if you want to have input, you need to be in those
or if
locations.
you want to see change.
Correct. So, look, as I said, I'm a very passionate surfer, bodyboarder, whatever. I wouldn't you wouldn't see me on a SUP because I'm very uncoordinated on one of them. But, I'm a member of a number of clubs, both platforms, and, I want to see the sport, both bodyboarding and surfing, grow. And, there's people out there in surfing administration that are willing to help us. We need to be able to, from a bodyboarding perspective, we need to be able to engage and build the relationships with them, and also work with them and show the value sort of thing. So,
and currently, mate, the progress is coming along really well. I mean, there's some really good people at Surfing Victoria. Have kind of welcomed you with open arms.
Absolutely. And, look, it's been great because they know that obviously our strengths are in bodyboarding, but they've looked at us as almost like we're subject matter experts for the sport. So, things like the Tradie Challenge. I remember one of the gentlemen from Surfing Vic reaching out to me and he goes, how would you feel, would you be keen on a bodyboarding division at Tradie Challenge? And absolutely, and I was absolutely stoked to have a bodyboard division last year in Tradie Challenge.
Brought in our own judges.
Yep.
Everything. We had 2 bodyboard judges and 1 surf judge, which, to be honest, opened up the eyes of that surfing judge.
Yeah.
He loved it.
I've spoken to him.
And he really loved being in the tent with us in the judging as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So, things like that, there's scope for that in the future. And, Surfing Vic runs events, everything from state titles in the stand-up side of things, also through to they have a large part to play in Bells in the Rip Curl Pro that was just on. I was lucky enough to attend the opening ceremony for that and a few other bits and pieces, which was great. But also they've got the WSL longboard event in September as well for the first time at Bells, which also would be really cool.
Yeah,
but such a great way for, surfing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not so much bodyboarding, but
definitely
for surfing.
Definitely bodyboarding.
Yeah.
I'd probably prefer to watch Winky, but but it's having that sort of input. And look, things we're doing for Bodyboarding Victoria and that sort of thing aren't going unnoticed. Look, like I said, lucky enough to receive the Spirit of Bodyboarding Award, but last year I attended I was invited to a government function for services to volunteer services to sporting organisations, which was really cool. And, I take my hat off to anyone that's in the organisation space of surfing or bodyboarding that is a volunteer, because there's a lot of hours that go into it that people don't see. And essentially being on the board of Surfing Vic and being president of Bodyboarding Victoria, it's like having another job.
Yeah.
It is essentially having another job. There's 10 to 15 hours a week worth of work. So sort of last year I finished my Masters of Business and that took up 20 hours a week, and I've just replaced it with more stuff. So yeah. I don't sleep, by the way.
So considering all these positions that you're currently in, where do you sort of see bodyboarding headed into the future at this point? Where would you like to see it go?
I really want to see sustainable growth in bodyboarding. And when I mean sustainable, I want to see everyone I really would like to see from the grassroots or the small, like juniors and stuff like that, new people to the sport and things, all the way through to, like a pro tour or pro amateur tour or however it may be. And I know there's a lot of stuff in the works, but I think, a lot of us currently in the sport, we are people that have been in here for 20 plus years. There's so many people. You look at the biggest, currently the biggest divisions in any of the clubs, the Masters or Grandmasters, because, there's still people from the 90s or whatever it may be, but I'd really like to see the juniors and the women grow. For instance,
for juniors to grow, you almost want the Masters and Grandmasters to thrive, because they're hopefully bringing their kids along.
Absolutely. And we need to make the environment, and that's one thing I've been, pretty keen on ensuring we do, is bring the environment that people feel safe to surf or bodyboard or whatever it may be, and have fun doing so. So, women's and juniors is a massive growth platform for us, and even things like you see a lot of places these days, and learn to surf will be, here, have a foamy. Not everyone wants to ride a foamy. Get them on a bodyboard, get them catching the white water. The learning curve's far shorter, and there's things that we can sort of push in that space. But my famous saying is that to build a house, you need to start with foundations. We need to start with these people filtering in, and sort of, you think about it in business, it's almost like succession planning for the people that drop off. But we need to grow the sport. And I think there's a lot of really talented people and a lot of driven people at the moment putting their, without any sort of fanfare or anything like that, putting in time behind the scenes. And, I see a lot of things where people are like, we need this, we need that. But there's a lot of people behind the scenes working on these things, trying to get funding to run events. And, like I said, that's a full-time job in itself to try and get $50K to run an event or whatever. It's very difficult. So
well said. Probably start winding it up from here. What we might do is go into our little, what we're going to do is a...
quick fire question round.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just so we get to know you a little bit better. Favourite band?
Ooh, really depends on the mood. My Spotify playlist is so hit and miss at the moment. Some of the things I probably listen to is there's a bit of Millen Cullen in there at the moment. There's a bit of Luke Combs. There's a bit of Dire Straits. It's very, very,
Dire
very...
Straits.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Brothers in Arms.
Yes.
Favourite film?
Point Break.
Point Break.
The OG. Not the new one. The OG.
Utah. Get me too.
I feel like we're all going to almost answer that question exactly the same.
It is the best movie.
Best worst surf movie of all time.
Nah, it's the best.
It's the best.
It's the best.
No, worst in terms of the surfing content.
No, so the surfing content's really good. It's just whoever edited it clearly had the actual filming's great, but whoever edited it, old mate's going left, he's going right, he's going left, he's going right.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Patrick Swayze did all of his own surfing in that movie.
Really?
He even broke 3 ribs during the shoot.
Really?
Yeah.
Another fun fact, Peter Phelps, the Australian in the last scene.
Yep.
I was on my honeymoon and was walking along a little boardwalk in the Foster region, and Nikki and I were walking along. I was going to check the surf, and Peter Phelps walked past us in the opposite direction, and I was so tempted. No one's been out, no one's going out.
Is this a deep regret that you live with every day?
I think about it all the time. I wake up in the morning screaming,
He's not coming back.
favourite car? You are a car fanatic.
Oh, I love cars. Given what my career has been,
This answer might be a long one.
Ooh, yeah. I am very fond, like my dear friend Mr. Matthew Lackey, I'm very fond for a 40 Series Land Cruiser. I have one in the shed.
What happened to that? How's that going for you?
It went through a baptism of fire, so to speak.
You obviously love it so much you take a lot of care and be really responsible for it. What happened there?
Cut a long story short, I was in a shed fire working on it. It caught fire.
So you're a mechanic, right?
Yes.
And you were working on your beloved vehicle.
Yeah. And it caught fire.
Oh, my God.
But, all right. I'm a diesel mechanic. That had petrol. So does that count?
But you're also a marine mechanic, and how's your jet ski going?
Yeah, good. You know what they say. You don't.
I remember cruising back from a certain location. You and I half sunk. We look like bloody Gilligan and the skipper.
Yeah, that's right. You got to bail every so often. It's a jet ski. You know the best kind of jet ski or boat? Someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. I've discovered that. Favorite TV show?
Ooh. I watch a lot of YouTube content. I watch a lot of obviously a lot of car stuff. Some of the channels I watch is...
Like the guys that kind of collect and restore old cars, that stuff?
I like guys that build, like they'll have a car and they'll put a different engine in or whatever it may be. So some of the ones I watch are like Mighty Car Mods. There's one called Roadkill, bunch of guys in the US that go to junkyards, pick up cars and cobble stuff together to get them to drive places. That's pretty epic.
There used to be a great Australian show on ABC years ago called Bush Mechanics. Do you guys?
Yes, yeah,
it's great.
yeah,
Great.
I learned a few things from that. Yeah, a whole heap of YouTube subscriptions, and Roadkill, Engine Masters, that sort of thing. So a lot of car stuff I watch. I'm a nerd for anything engine related.
Yeah, nice. Favorite bodyboard film?
I was thinking about this the other day, and it would have to be Friends of None. I reckon I've watched Friends of None probably 450,000 times. And my favourite section is actually on Friends of None, which is Jeff Hubbard's. I've always looked up to how Jeff Hubbard surfs, and like he's surfing pretty average Californian stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Tom Petty Learning to Fly as the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched that a stack of times.
Have you been mistaken for someone famous?
So in my job role, I do a lot of, like I said before, international travel and a lot of training people with English as second language. And I had a group of Koreans come over and attend training with us. One of the gentlemen on the last day goes, Mr. Chris. He goes, you look like Kip. And I'm like, hey, what's he talking about? Like, I got no idea what's going on here. And he's like, you look like Kip. He pulls up a photo of David Hasselhoff in Night Rider. And
I'll be honest,
So
mate,
saying-
I don't see that.
By saying Kit, he meant the car. You look like the car.
and my hair was quite long at the time, like sort of, pretty curly and stuff. And he's like, you look like Kip. And I'm like, yeah, right. So it even went as far as one of
that photo.
one of my colleagues photoshopped my head onto David Hasselhoff's body from
Mitch
the Baywatch.
Buchanan. That's gold, that Mitch.
It was sensational.
You are missing one time, though, that I do recall you being mistaken for someone famous.
When your father, your favourite father mistook me for you.
yeah, we won't tell that story in full.
No, I think you should.
No, because Cliffy, it's the most embarrassed I've ever seen my father, Cliffy.
Cliffy still gets red when you bring it up these
He
days.
does. He just has a blank. It just goes red. So we won't go into that story, but I do recall that one. First board.
My first proper board was Rio Pipe Ben Holland with the square tail.
Yeah. When you say proper board, so what was before that?
Like a Mac. I'm going to say Mac 10, I think it was. But yeah, I had a 38 inch. Like when I was little, there wasn't quite the scope of board sizes there is these days. Like you look at, like you can get 36s and 38s and stuff. And I remember the old boy trying to get me on something adequate. And yeah, I was on the I rode Rio Pipo for a bit, and then I rode for Manta for a couple of years, and I was on 38 and 40 inch Sabre Pros for quite some time.
Yeah. I don't know if I really want you to answer this one, but favourite wave? Maybe we just say Urbn. 'Cause
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe just describe the wave without name dropping.
I have a
Rephrase it. Beach break, reef break.
oh, yeah, that's better.
uh,
Rip bowl.
Rip Bowl. Yeah. I do have a favourite wave. Those who know me well will know where to find me.
Yeah. Let's move on to favourite surf trip.
Ooh. Nationals last year was a massive highlight. I really enjoyed that.
Have you done many kind of OS trips?
No, I haven't.
With the lads?
No,
Maybe with the wife?
no. Oh, our honeymoon.
Perfect.
Our honeymoon, I did. Those who know me know that I'm more than happy to make last minute plans. When we got married, we hadn't decided where we were going on a honeymoon, so everyone had given us cash. We'd lived together for 5 years at the time, so we had everything we needed.
Didn't get the second kettle?
No, we didn't need another kettle or a toaster. I barely know where the toaster is these days. And I remember I had 2 weeks off work, And Courtney's like, oh, so what are we going to do? So we walked in the travel agent with an envelope of cash. And I said, we're getting a flight today. Where can we go?
Oh, wow.
And so the lady's like, oh, you're too late for Fiji, da-da-da-da-da. She's like, you can go to the US. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we paid for our flights. And as you know, to get into the US, you need an ESTA visa, the visa waiver. Courtney's and mine had both expired, and I met Courtney in New York in 2012, and just ironically, she lived on one side of Melbourne, I lived on the other side, and we've been together ever since, but both of our waivers had expired, so here we are just before in the travel agents, like, applying for it. Courtney's went through, mine didn't, and we're sitting there and like, oh well, let's go to the airport. So we went to the airport, and I'm like, oh, I'll throw some surf stuff in. And I know a lot of people get like tied up with like wrapping up boards and making sure they're safe and stuff like that. No, you got to run the Chris Watson spec, slap the sticker on the slick, put it in the plane. And I've done this like 5 or 6 times, and every time I tell someone. So
checked baggage.
Yep.
No board bag, no sock, no bubble wrap.
Nah.
Just straight board.
Send it. And even like, because the amount of travel I've done in probably the last 15 years, platinum frequent flyer. Somehow I've ended up as lifetime gold with Qantas. I don't know if that's an achievement or a hindrance, whatever, but they put the priority tag underneath it as well. So you've got the priority tag and the bag tag over the top of the sleeve. It's just a pain to get off at the other end. Anyway, I checked my stuff in, and I remember we got to LA airport, and I see coming down, I was on QCDs at that time, and I remember seeing coming down the baggage carousel, like I would have thought it would have come in oversized, 43-inch like QCD with a pink slick and a black deck, was wedged in the baggage carousel. And I'm like, they're like, who owns this? And I'm like, me. So, yeah, I have been known a couple of times, but I did sneak some waves in that trip.
Whereabouts in the US?
The Wedge.
West Coast.
Yeah. Yep. Few places. San Fran. Not under the bridge, unfortunately.
Under the bridge, mate.
But the thing was, because I'd packed so quickly, I forgot I didn't pay attention to what time of year it was. So here's me packing. Like, we got married in February. I threw a spring suit in the bag. Didn't
spring suit and board shorts.
Yeah. So I ended up in some surf shop buying like a factory second wetsuit and a 4.3 so that I could surf. But
so final questions?
Yep.
Favourite move and favourite board?
Favourite move?
Take off roll, surely, for you.
No, it's just, yeah. I like a good reverse spin.
Ooh. Like
a sort of like bottom turn to a high line reverse, or reverse, like rebound reverse. I reckon they look pretty good. Favourite board? I've been riding 2 templates since, I reckon, 2016, I reckon. The Joe Clark Function has been one of them. And then I also have the other favourite is the Nitro Function. So I can't remember how many of them I've had. My current one's got the Gator slick on it, the graphic slick, and I pretty much ride that board in all conditions. I pull the Joe Clark 43.5 out in bigger surf, but yeah, the Nitro template has been the go-to for probably 6-7 years now. I like it.
Chris Watson, thanks for the chat.
Cheers. Also want to thank Sam Watson in production, Michael Jennings for tech support, and also Rob Porteous and his band Remote for music. Join in on our next episode as we dive in to a little bit more information about Shane Britton.
Yay!
Hey.
Thank you.